Greetings, mortals. I have a problem with backgrounds in D&D. The only reason I still include a background as part of character creation when I make a new character in 5e is because it gives me 2 free skill proficiencies. If we're being honest with the new custom backgrounds, there's no real reason for me to actually choose a background and have it be meaningful in any mechanical or role-playing way as I'm playing my character. It doesn't matter if I'm an acolyte or a sage. The only other things you get from those skill proficiencies that may be custom and therefore you don't really need anything else, but the only other things you might get are 1 week situational, barely used role-playing ability, like getting a free place to stay, which, you know, what adventurer in 5e past the very first adventure is worrying about paying 2 silver for a night at a cheap inn? And they give you a list of suggested characteristics that are little better than quirks that really aren't helpful for role-playing a character because they don't delve deep enough to get into their motivations or their drives or the things that happen to them to make them the way that they are. That's where quirks should stem from for your character. As I said, backgrounds are all but useless for providing in-game motivation and useless for writing backstories as well, or at least nearly so. Now, some people don't believe in backstories at all, grognards, if you will, who prefer that OSR style or where you're sending your characters through a meat grinder and that the ones who survive, that becomes your actual character and the meat grinder was their backstory. And, you know, I can get behind that. But in other types of games that are much more narrative and story focused, I do appreciate it when characters write a backstory. And I think that there should be as many tools as possible provided to those characters to write the best backstory they can write. So let me introduce you to a new game and provide an alternative for these lackluster mechanics of backgrounds used in D&D. A big thank you to Anais and everyone else over at Renegade Games who sent me Hunter the Reckoning, which is a very cool game about monster hunters, and it has an interesting mechanic used for character creation and in play that I'd like to tell you about as an alternative to backgrounds, and they are called creeds. This is a game that is about monster hunters in a modern day setting. And these are specifically the monster hunters who are not backed by any organization, religious, governmental, or otherwise. This is a group of hunters who has come together because they have seen the horrors of the unseen world, the supernatural that lurks beneath the surface, and they have decided to do something about it. But these hunters kind of naturally fall into different categories or groups of naturally occurring peers called creeds. And these creeds are entrepreneurial, faithful, inquisitive, martial, and underground. And now these aren't just cool buzzwords, they also provide a lot of information in this here rulebook for implementing those creeds both in character creation and in play. For each creed, they provide a description of what that creed basically is, and then they go into detail with a paragraph or 3 about the typical type of personality of a hunter belonging to that creed, the sort of tactics that they use on a hunt, and the dangers that they specifically face when it comes to hunting the supernatural. For example, the entrepreneurial, that's what this one is, right? Yes. The entrepreneurial creed faces dangers. They can be kind of like research and development or mad scientists, but they like developing things. I'll just read you a bit from the rulebook. Beyond the personal moral risks of hunting the supernatural, there's always the potential for the quarry, that's the monster you're hunting, there's always the potential for the quarry to capture valuable prototypes and even use the hunter's own tools and weapons against them. The entrepreneurial hunter relies greatly on their gadgets, kit bashes, gear, and weapons. So not only does putting one in the hands of the enemy deprive the hunter of it, it may well add that capacity to the quarry if the monster can figure out how to use it. And that's just one of the massive, each of these creeds have like 3 pages of text, and it's all useful. They also include suggested edges, which are features used in character building, common drives for hunters of that creed, and desperation dice fields, which are specific circumstances that player can add desperation dice to their dice pool if they find themselves in that situation. Finally, each creed offers a few archetypes for that specific creed. For the faithful, these archetypes might include, or they do include, absolver, death's brink convert, physical specimen, or apostate. And each of these gives a description of why this hunter falls into this particular creed and something unique about them. And of course, these archetypes aren't limitations. These aren't the only 4 archetypes that a faithful hunter could be, but they are inspiration for someone creating a hunter of that creed. As I said, I find this an infinitely better alternative to D&D's Backgrounds because it includes lots of actionable info for both players and GMs while players are creating their characters and while they're in play. It can inspire players to play their characters a certain way. It can give the GM ideas, like to have a monster steal the prototype from an entrepreneurial hunter. It can give those hunters ways to roleplay better. If they are a physical specimen faithful hunter, then maybe they have a friend that they can call on, who's a workout buddy, or things like that. These creeds are helpful but not limiting when it comes to creating a character, and they are full of potential inspiration for a player as they're going through the game. All in all, creeds do something that Backgrounds could never hope to do by being both useful and inspiring to a great degree when creating and playing a character. So if you're one of those people who insist on playing 5e because it's all you know, or maybe you're just a GM whose players refuse to play anything else. I mean, I have thoughts on that. You're the GM, you should be able to run whatever game you want. Maybe take some ideas from creeds in Hunter the Reckoning and apply those to character creation. Or if you think this game sounds pretty cool, maybe you can check it out and tell me what you think of creeds when you're playing with them. If you like content like this, please subscribe. Tell us in a comment below what you liked about this video, or if you didn't like it at all, tell me what I could do better next time. Thank you for watching, and good night, mortals.